How long is it taking you to map your assets to SFG20? If you do it manually, it will take hours, but it can just take minutes if you're using AI solution SFG20 Mobilizer. In this video, Paul Bullard, Product Director, and Mike Talbot, Chief Technology Officer, answer your questions about built asset registers and mapping your assets to SFG20 schedules using AI. Let's jump right in.
So I'd like to just pick up on this 0U frequencies, because there were a couple of questions on this topic, and maybe Paul, you'd like to come in on this one. So we've got, do you have a list of 0U frequencies within SFG20 to help people understand where they have to do risk assessments?
I think that's really the difference between legacy SFG20 products and Facilities IQ. So the 0U, an unidentified frequency within a SFG20 schedule, as a task, it's there for various reasons. One of them might be it's an event-driven situation. So, for example, you've had a fire and you need your fire safety information box replenished. Or it might be that there's actually a risk assessment required to help you identify exactly what do you need to do and how often for your particular site. And that might be classifying what type of site is, what the site's used for, how old the equipment is. That would determine whether you need to do a statutory task every few months, every few years, or even every 10 years, depending on those variables, which is why we provide the ability now to actually make assessments of that and update that in bulk. Within the SFG20 Facilities IQ product, though, it's far easier to actually identify your tasks that need that attention prior to the transfer to any CAFM system or any file output.
It's literally a click of a button, isn't it? Once you've got your maintenance regime, you can just click that 0U filter just to see how many tasks that you've got that apply to you. So it's super easy.
I just wanted to say, Lisa,
sorry, Mike.
In the new software, there is a specific place where all of that information is collated on one screen, and it leads you through the steps, and you can choose to do that on a very individual basis, but frequently you'll be able to take one risk assessment and apply it to a whole swathe of things, and you can just do that in one place in this version I was demonstrating.
Thanks, Mike. Perhaps another question for you, Paul. Are we not moving into the CAFM space?
No, we're absolutely not. The SFG20 has no intention of becoming an operational CAFM system in any way. What we're doing is helping those CAFM systems by pre-preparing this data, which seems to be a challenge for industry. So we're assisting that and then making it very easy to pass that data through to your operational CAFM system and have them make use of it with the correct information, rather than causing a huge manual process, which we see happening today.
Yeah, absolutely. Perhaps one for you, Mike. So somebody's got a BIM file here, and they're saying that their project comes with NRM codes. So our challenge is to match these to SFG20. How can this new technology help with that?
So the technology, the AI mapping I've mentioned, that search at the beginning automatically uses our knowledge of which NRM codes and which Uniclass codes map to SFG20 schedules. So that data is brought in, that is used to refine that list, so it can effectively, if you've got an NRM code or a Uniclass code, it's very likely to automatically just map it without you having to take any manual intervention, because those do limit down the number of schedules pretty quickly. And we maintain a constant mapping between SFG20 and those other coding systems, so we can definitely help with that. It's just a sort of a core part of it. If you've got that, you'll see that my demonstration and a lot of the things we talk about are for people who don't have those things. But when you do have those things, it's great news, because we've optimized for that too. It's just we're really trying to solve the problem for the people who don't, as well as solve the problem for the people who do.
Yeah, because the majority of our buildings, as Paul said earlier, they're already built. So they're legacy buildings with out-of-date asset registers in many cases. So we've got a question here around how do you identify which are the core maintainable assets? So do you put in an Excel file, and will it map Uniclass codes too, as well as SFG20 codes?
So, I mean, first off, if you just take your asset register and you run it through the auto mapping and you load it in, very quickly you can see all the things which have critical legally required tasks on them. That's super easy to do. You can just filter by that, find your assets that have got that on it. But we also allow you to import other data that you may have in your register, such as asset criticality, and then you can start to tailor what maintenance you want to do based on that criticality, or indeed on the condition of that asset, those kind of things. So we allow you to basically set up, filter, and tailor based on other attributes, such as the age, condition, or criticality of that asset.
Brilliant. Will the AI mapping always be 100% accurate? I think, Mike, you already dealt with that, didn't you? It kind of depends on the quality of your data coming in, but it will have a very good go. And where you've got codes in place like NRM, then yes, it's going to be help massively with that process.
It will help, and if it's not sure, if it's not convinced, it won't map it. It'll be in a list, and then you have to go. The way of doing this is you grab your data, you pull it through. It will automatically map a bunch of things. It won't map a bunch of others. They'll be in a list or a wizard. You step through. You can answer the questions if you know the answer to them, or just look at the list and choose one, or just choose not to map it if we don't have a schedule that covers that piece of equipment in the way you want it to be done.
So it'll massively help and shortcut things, whatever the outcome. Paul, can I ask you a question here? Can we integrate / automate with our current CAFM?
Our digital partner program that we launched earlier this year has been really well taken up in the CAFM community. We have a number of systems that are now live with an integration with SFG20. Essentially, what SFG20 does is push an API that we make available to our digital partners for them to connect and actually listen for new schedule updates or revised schedule or additions to a maintenance regime. They can then take that data into their own systems, and we have a number who are now live. You can see that on our website. That Lisa will be able to give you details in the chat of where to look for that. But there's a detailed illustration of who's ready now. We have a number of partners who are just about to launch their integrations. So I think it's a watch this space. We do have a lot coming on though, and we already have a lot in play.
Yeah, we certainly do. We've got 6 waiting in the wings, and our website details all of our partners who are currently live. I've got a question here actually on the integration with Concerto. All we would recommend that you do is speak to your digital partners, because of course your voice carries a lot more weight than us saying, oh, you know, one of your customers has come to us and is requesting this this integration. It carries so much more weight if you go to your existing CAFM system and say, I'd like to benefit from this right now. And also an interesting question about how can this be used separately if perhaps people don't use a CAFM system already?
So, I mean, I think there's, you can certainly output from an SFG20 maintenance regime a complete list of tasks that need to be done, including links back to the full descriptions. You can produce a step list out to an Excel spreadsheet that you could deploy, distribute however you felt necessary. Can be very useful for user checks, which your service provider isn't doing for you. That maybe you've got some user checks. They can be very handy for exporting those kind of things so that people can do them even if you are using a CAFM actually. But yes, so we've got multiple ways of getting the data out. The key thing we want to do is make sure that our users have all of the data they need in whatever format they need it. So yeah, lovely if it's integrated via an API with automatic pushing and we already know it's up to date, or in fact, you're choosing when to update it, you're choosing when contracts end and you want to revise things. All of that stuff is a key part of that integration. But if you haven't got that, then you can get this data out in a file that's going to be machine readable, or an Excel file that's going to be human and machine readable.
Yeah. Question here on multiple assets. For example, FCUs. Would each unit need to be listed as an individual line item?
So ideally, yes, though we can sort of make, you can say, I've got 6 of this thing. You can definitely do that. That's fine. It's obviously slightly harder to integrate with a CAFM, because a CAFM is going to say, Bob, go to machine X, go to this ID X and do this task. So at some point, someone's going to need to know what it is. So in order to tell someone to go there, I guess if you're not using a CAFM, maybe not. So yes, the system will work with that. I've got 6 of these, 5 of those, 2 of them. And one of the big extensions here as well is because of that optionality that we've allowed in here as well, is obviously you might have the same schedule used for 3 different types of this asset. This one's got some belt guards, these 2 don't. All of that stuff is handled as well. So you can do it as numbers or you can do it as individual asset IDs. It's either of those really.
Got it. So Paul, question here on task timings. What are they based on? Are they based on feedback from industry? And when were these last validated as to their accuracy? Could you perhaps talk about the approach that our technical authors take on this?
Okay, I think in terms of the task time, this is as with most of the SFG20 schedule updates, this is an ongoing process. So all the time as the schedules are revised, the task timings are analysed, and we make sure that they're a fair judgment, a fair approximation of a task being carried out. I mean, some things that they don't cover is the individual site-based travel time, or what should I say, or the nuances around access to a particular site or location, because they couldn't possibly know for each specific location. But they're a good approximation of how much effort or time effort an actual schedule or the work within a schedule should take.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. And our schedules are looked at on a regular basis as and when the legislative landscape is updated and also best practice is updated.
Yeah, absolutely.
My question for you, would it let the person who's asking this question, would it let us cancel a statutory task?
You can cancel statutory tasks using tailoring, though the automated turn all this stuff off does not let you do that. You have to go into more detail, and then you have to go through, when you go through your approval process on it, you're going to need to sort of get that reviewed and allow it through. But yes, you can, because it is, SFG20 is a standard, but perhaps in some specific setting, this task is not critical and you have a good justification for that. Our job is to provide our accurate summary of the criticality of a task as it pertains to all buildings. It is possible that using your skill, you can choose to override that should you wish to. But you're going to have to justify that basically when you do it, and then yeah, it's fine. You can do that if you really have to.
It's really important to have it documented, your rationale for not performing that task because you've managed to comply in a different way.
At the end of the day, if you're maintaining a building to SFG20 because you want to be seen to be doing the right thing, and that if there were ever any problem, you could defend it by saying you were doing the right thing, those justifications are vital, because what is doing it because it's a cost saving, you really should have done it, not a good idea. Doing it because no, it doesn't make sense in this setting, of course we understand it's very hard to write a standard that fits everywhere, and we are not the experts on your building. We're the experts on the law and how it pertains to general buildings. So we definitely want to give the tools there to do that. But this is a really important thing about all the work we've been doing with Facilities IQ, and that is we want to make sure you're not over maintaining, that you're maintaining the right things in the right place, and that when you have multiple things with different requirements, like 2 boilers, one's an old one in a poor condition and one's a new one that's perfectly great, that you're not doing the wrong tasks to each of those things, that you're not over maintaining or under maintaining, and that can be mapped through properly. So we're really trying to put those tools out there. But that's very important for the integration with CAFM, because the CAFM can no longer say, I'm doing schedule 2503. I'm now doing some schedule which is a tailored version of that fits this specific building. It's SFG20 as a base and as a set of justifications. So it's still SFG20 if you've gone through our software and you provided the justifications, but it's with your tailored version of that has your responsibility for choosing not to do a thing.
Okay, that's clear, thank you. Question here, specifics. Is your system compatible with MRI evolution?
I'll take that, Lisa. MRI is one of the digital partners who have recently gone live as a partner organisation.
Thank you very much. Back over to Mike, I think. Generally speaking, how long would it take to map 3,000 assets? Seconds, minutes, hours? I suppose it depends on your file, doesn't it? If you've got a BIM file, probably seconds. Yeah.
So Let's talk about the process. So the process of mapping 3,000 assets. Let's say they're in. Let's say there are 1,000 types of asset, and you've got roughly 3 of each. Then that process to go through the AI process, search, find that initial set of things, do the initial automated mapping. That's going to take about 4 or 5 minutes on that kind of volume. And then obviously, if there are a load that haven't mapped because you have to answer questions, maybe you didn't have all the uniclass codes, maybe some things aren't clear to it, then that's just a case of how many of those are left, and you're going to go through them. But we're finding that you're mapping things in a afternoon, even if you have to go and ask questions about stuff and you have to go and look at some things. We really do try to use a lot of information from your register if you have it. So if you know who the manufacturer of something is, you know what the model number is. We use all of that stuff to try and get the right thing. So the more data you throw at it, the more chance it has of doing that automated thing. If it doesn't automate it, you're just going to have to do a piece of work, but that work is going to be assisted the entire way via AI to reduce a lot of the manual overheads that would normally be there.
Yeah, thank you. So question here, thinking about security, would we be able to recover all data shared in the unlikely case that we cancelled our license from SFG20? So not sure what we're talking about here, sharing to CAFMs, sharing with service providers, contractors. What's your view on this? Can I go to Paul on that? Oh, Mike, sorry.
Well, I mean, just technically speaking, if you ask us to delete your data is deleted. I mean, that's it. It's very straightforward. Obviously, the way that we normally integrate with people is via what we call sharing links. And that sharing link could either be effectively used like a web page, which allows you to read the book about your particular maintenance regime, or it can be shared to a CAFM as an API, same link, and they use it to pull the data down into their system. Obviously, we can't control what's in their system, so you'd have to make sure they deleted it. But yes, this data is yours as far as we're concerned. We're just maintaining it on your behalf. And the assets there really, after you've mapped them and you've pushed them back into your CAFMs or some other asset management system is really managing those assets in future. That's where you want it to be. You don't want to have to go into 7 different systems to do that. We can just take a feedback in from that system to keep it up to date if you want to keep viewing it. And that might be very important if you want to make sure that, things are being kept up to date with.
Okay. I've got loads of questions to get through. I'm doing my best to try and whistle through them. Do we have a template that we can use, perhaps that we can share with the person who's asking this question as a starting point for collection with an aim to reduce guessing, or is it just asset description?
So, okay, I mean, we use a lot of information. So we'll use an asset description, which we'd expect to be a more descriptive version of an asset, a type, a category, what system it's part of, who made it, what its model number is, and then actually where it's located really helps. So if it's located in the plant room, you already know it's something. If it's located on the roof, you already know it's something else. All of these things really help. So places and those kind of things. Do we have a template? Well, we have a set of required and optional columns that we currently import from an Excel spreadsheet, and we're intending to extend that list to include any columns that you might have that we wouldn't use in future. In that first version, it doesn't do that yet. So yes, we've got a template for that, but I mean, it does let you put in a file and then map those things in, and also work out how you want to map those things across. And you can build Excel spreadsheets with formulas and all this sort of lookups if that's what you've got. If you've got like reference Excel spreadsheets and you want to do lookups, it'll do all of those kind of things. So we try and pull that data in, whatever you can give us. Ideally, we wouldn't try and map every individual asset's description. We would normally try to map its type and have derived its type. So that's usually the thing. I want to map this type of HVAC unit. I don't want to map HVAC unit on the roof made by blah, blah, blah as its description. I want that extra information to help me. It's a hard answer. The answer is yes, we've got a template. I should have shut up after that.
Thank you. Do you need to be affiliated with a particular CAFM provider, or can this be done independently? So I assume if what you mean is by independently, do you not have to be using a CAFM provider to use SFG20? I think we've covered that one already. Yes, it is possible to use us and to extract the data. And when it comes to our API, we can connect with any CAFM, CMMS, IWFM system. So there are no restrictions there. Will the AI differentiate between different industry sectors and their requirements? For example, NHS use HTM guidance for some of its asset management.
So yes, it does understand healthcare facilities. You may have picked up if you were looking very closely. It was not on screen for very long, but I was mapping actually an American medical dental clinic in that particular example. We use the American ones because they're quite good data, but it's got nothing to do with Uniclass or NRM. It's all Omniclass. So therefore, it gives me the hardest time to map things that we possibly could when we test stuff out. And it absolutely knows it's a medical dental clinic, and it absolutely recommends HTM schedules. The mapping has a few tweaks that you put on it. So you mention whether or not you have assets in Scotland, for instance, or Northern Ireland, because we have different schedules that cover the laws in those places. So if you turn those on, it'll start recommending, especially HTM aligned, SHTM aligned as it would be for Scotland. It'll start recommending those more. Turn it off, it'll stop recommending the Scottish ones, try the English ones more, if it's identified that kind of stuff. So it will. I think that's an area where it can get better, but it already does a significant amount of that, especially around HTM guidance being required or not.
That sounds super useful. Can people still download a PDF of the schedules?
Well, yes, is about to be the answer. We didn't have that on because we've used these sharing links for quite a period of time, but right now we are going to be making that available again so people can download a PDF of the schedule. I think the key thing here is, though, that PDF is going to be very much your PDF with your data and your responsibility. That is not SFG20 anymore, because SFG20 requires it to be through a facilities IQ so that legislation is kept up to date. And we are worried about paper versions of the product because they fall out of date so quickly and they end up not being, you're not maintaining a building to SFG20 if you're using a PDF from 3 years ago that's been updated 4 times. So that's that. So we are going to allow it because we understand that people do want to do that, and we've listened to our customers, and some people have wanted that. I get it. So we're going to make that available again.
Yes, thank you very much. So the answer is yes, but there's a cautionary tale around that. Don't work from out-of-date PDF schedules. How do you deal with parent-child relationships?
Between assets at the present time, we don't. That is maintained as a separate list of things. Obviously, there's a parent-child relationship to do with where it's located inside a building, but we don't specifically deal with parent-child relationships in terms of assets.
I think it's fair, going back to what we were talking about earlier of where we sit on the CAFM side. The CAFM tool is your asset management solution. And so all of the structuring, the effort around your asset composition and categorization would happen in your CAFM system. What we're doing is enabling the ability for you to take in that asset register into our system, automatically map that, and then produce that as an output.
Thanks for that, Paul. If a description is missing, for example, if the surveyor failed to complete the description, will this be detrimental to the AI review?
Depends what other information is available. I mean, if all you've got is a serial number, yeah, it's not going to know anything about that. If you've got a manufacturer and maybe a category and what room it's in, it's going to make that list a lot shorter. Good type descriptions are important for it being confident that it's made the mapping, but they're not important in order for it to help you make that choice very quickly. That's really, like I say, if someone's written down boiler, there's no way an AI can tell you which boiler that was. It just can't know because there are so many types of boiler. So you're going to have to answer some questions. It's going to ask you those questions. Is it electric? Does it use this? What's its maximum temperature? These are the kind of questions it's going to ask you. But yeah, fundamentally, it doesn't matter if it can't do it automatically. It just means you have to take a step on whatever assets are remaining. That's it.
What is the accuracy of NRM Uniclass to SFG20 AI matching, and does it flag failed matches?
So if you can't find an NRM code, yes, it does know that it can't find an NRM or Uniclass matching. We maintain the dictionary that's available throughout Facilities IQ. So if you're in Facilities IQ, just generally ignore the new stuff and all the versions. You can search via NRM code, you can search via Uniclass code, or if you've got an SFG20, you can go and look at the codes tab and you can see all the NRM codes and Uniclass codes which apply to it. That's true everywhere. We also use the descriptions of those codes to help search for things. We use that in the AI as well. So if NOM describes this as something, those will be terms that can be used to either search in our Google like search box, or it's also used by the AI. We have to keep that thing up to date. We are, we working with the partners in the industry who make these coding systems, look at ways that we can all optimize the experience for all. Watch this space.
The internet's going a bit flaky there, Mike, but we'll ask you another question and see how we go. We've been blessed up until now. Are there minimum software system requirements to run this package?
There are. They're not very. I mean, they're not very low. I mean, it'll run on a laptop. All of this mapping, all of this stuff is being done on servers. God knows where the AI mapping GPUs that run the AI logic run. They run somewhere in the cloud. Yeah, basically, run it on a laptop. You kind of need a 1400 screen, otherwise it's a bit too small. But that would be about it.
Fantastic. Over to you, Paul. How can we actively support our clients to get their SFG20 regimes in place?
Okay, so something that we're launching at the beginning of next year, we've already been working with a few customers, is SFG20 has previously provided some solutions assistance to the larger government departments, and that means working with them to help best practice implementation of SFG20 and also a strategy around their maintenance. Now we're opening that up completely and offering a professional services delivery team to our customers, where we'll be able to help you work around your maintenance regimes, look at implementing the system, actually helping you make those key decisions, assisting with your integration with the CAFM, although largely that's done by the CAFM vendors themselves. And it's really our opportunity to, we're quite determined, we're very proud of the schedules that we produce at SFG20, and we really want them to be used well across industry, and we recognise that maybe industry needs a bit of hand holding to actually make that happen, and we're happy to release that opportunity.
Fantastic. Another question for you, Paul. Can you manually edit the task wording in SFG20? I
think this goes back to the other question when we were actually talking about the can you drop tasks, can you drop legislation? I think that if you go back to the work that was done on the statutory wording, the wording of what defines statutory maintenance earlier this year by the industry bodies, the conclusion was there is more than one way for fulfilling those obligations. The only thing that you need to bear in mind is if you're doing something that best practice or legislation says that you should do or you must do, then if you're choosing to do something different, it's just important to have that audit trail of what you have done and that documentation of why you've chosen to do it. And as long as that's the place, and that's really what Facilities IQ is all about you making that decision. As Mike said, if we're doing a PDF output of a schedule, this is your schedule. Yes, it's based on SFG20 data, but it's your schedule. And the advantages with Facilities IQ is even though you may amend an individual task or add a different task in, you're still receiving those updates as the base schedule gets updated on a consistent basis.
I think also it's worth noting that if you want to add specific, site-specific instructions into a task, like, look here for the electrical point or something to guide the engineer, then absolutely you can do that as well. So you can add in little notes that will be helpful for your engineers. We've got another one on zero use. It would be useful to have times assigned to them, as they do not usually seem to. Can you tell us, Paul, about why zero use don't have times assigned?
Well, I think we're looking to provide guidance on the different options that people have ongoing. So they don't have times because, especially for the event-driven ones, when there's a situation, and we don't. I gave the example earlier of if you have a fire, replenishing that fire safety information box, and that's something that's that's specific as to when these things do happen. So on that basis, it's a 0 for a good reason. In terms of helping you along the way with the actual risk assessment or guidance, that would be down to the individual legislation that determines that if it's of a certain age or if it's of a certain type of facility, you do things differently. And we're looking to provide that assistance ongoing. Thank
you. Mike, if you're there, we've got a question here. Do you map them or do we? I think it's our new system that maps them.
Yes, it's a system that maps. I mean, initially, as we roll in learning more about it, we're going to be doing that as a professional service to start with. So everybody of all users of all levels of the software get the ability to view assets in the system, to be able to work out which assets are more expensive to maintain, tailor those assets as groups, deal with zero use. That's everybody. But at the present time, we're doing some of the mapping for the first month or so after we release this thing. And then slowly we will roll this out to people as we make sure it's us to the real world. That's important, I think.
I'm going to ask one final question if the connection holds out with Mike, and that is, what information is presented to the maintainer? Is it a simple instruction to do the work or a procedure? If a procedure, how generic is it?
So the work presented to the engineer can be one of two things. So it could be, you could show them the entire SFG20 task, which might be quite long for some things. So we can also produce a summarized step list of do this, then do this, then do this, and do this. That may have some if fitteds. Clearly, it isn't going to be specific to a particular manufacturer's equipment, but they are specific in terms of the steps you're supposed to take. And obviously, they're all tailorable, in terms of turning those off and on. And if you've got some unique piece of equipment, you can always make a custom schedule that truly says how to do that. So you're not only reliant on our ones if you found something that you need to do yourselves. But yeah, we provide a step list, and we also provide the entire content, which is written to be read by an engineer. It's written by an engineer to be read by an engineer.
Did you enjoy this video? Subscribe today to get the latest tips from SFG20, the industry standard for building maintenance.